What is up, guys? We're back with another video on the SDLE20 Chinese mini excavator. In the last video, I provided a general overview of what to expect if you're picking up one of these machines. I gave a quick look at each of the system's components and highlighted the key pre-operation maintenance recommended to complete before putting your machine to work. In this video, I plan to do a deep dive into the fuel system. I've heard a lot of owners say they found metal shavings in their fuel tank, so we're going to take a look. Since we're going through the effort, we might as well be thorough. So we'll look at the tank, lines, water separator, electric pump, fuel filter, and the mechanical injection pump feeding this 3-cylinder Yanmar diesel engine. Starting with the diesel tank, it's got a nice powder coat finish on the outside, or at least when compared to the hydraulic oil tank. The diesel tank is in the shape of an L. The base of the tank measures 12 inches long, 14.5 inches tall, and 8 inches deep. The bottom of the L is 3 inches deep and 6.5 inches long. The top of the L is 5.5 inches long and 12 inches tall. The fuel ports are located on the driver's side of the tank. The output port is about 2 inches from the base, and the input is about 2 inches from the top. My math puts the capacity of the tank at 2.9 gallons. With the location of the output port and the tank shape, nearly a gallon of fuel can still be in the tank before the output port starts sucking air. Your tank should be attached to the excavator's base plate with 2 bolts located on either side of the tank. Both bolts are secured with a banjo bolt. The nipple of the banjo bolt is 12 millimeters and the hose itself has an outer diameter of 14 millimeters. The output port of the tank travels up under the seat into the water separator. From the water separator, fuel is pulled through the fuel pump and into the screw-on oil filter. After running through the oil filter, fuel continues on to the injection pump. Fuel not used in the injection pump travels back to the filter housing and is recycled back to the diesel tank. The top of the diesel tank utilizes a generic chrome fuel cap. The fuel port and associated fuel screen can be removed with a 3mm hex key. There is a rubber gasket between the filler cap and the tank body. With our first look inside the diesel tank, we can see the fuel isn't exactly crystal clear. Not that diesel fuel is, but the fuel does look a little tainted. I've added about 2 gallons since purchasing the machine, so any really poor fuel in here is going to have been diluted. We can also see that the tank isn't sealed with anything, and it's just bare metal inside. We can see some welding has occurred on the interior panels of the tank, which is probably a contributor to the metal people are finding. The welding likely occurred before the tank was folded in on itself and welded shut. It's difficult to really see at the bottom, but there does seem to be some sediment at the bottom of the tank. For fun, I turned on the key and you can see the fuel circulating through the system and making its way back to the tank. I want you guys to understand, I don't claim to be an expert in any of this. I'm just a guy who owns something he thinks is cool and wants to share the information with other owners and people interested in taking their chances with a Chinese machine. With that said, I really don't see this issue being a big deal. Sure, I'd like if I didn't have sediment and apparent metal shavings in the bottom of my brand new equipment's diesel tank, but the pickup hose is a ways from the bottom where all the sediment and shavings have settled. This is common practice, and there's a legitimate screw-on fuel filter that should be catching any contamination making its way down the fuel line. So honestly, if I hadn't been making this video, I would have just reinstalled the fuel strainer and cap, replaced the existing fuel filter with one of known quality, such as a Wix 33399, and ran the machine. To combat rust, I would try to keep the tank full, always topping it off before long storage. And I just might have installed a plastic inline filter ahead of the fuel pump to protect it from contamination, but I likely would have postponed that until I actually had a problem with the pump and had to replace it. I already have a spare pump for mine. I picked it up off Amazon for $15. It's part number 129612-512100. For you guys, I'm going to delve a little deeper. We're going to remove the tank, collect and review the contaminants, and thoroughly clean the tank. To accomplish this, I removed the input port from the tank and capped it with a rubber glove. I then removed the 2 retaining bolts and realized the tank would not come out without dismounting the hydraulic tank. I fought with this Tetris until I could get the fuel tank far enough removed to get the output port above the diesel and disconnect it. Back in the lab, I siphoned the diesel from the tank and through a coffee filter. Nothing exciting came out. From there, I capped the 2 ports of the tank, filled it with soapy water, and repeatedly dumped the water from the tank, screening the contaminants through an old t-shirt. I then collected the contaminants from the shirt utilizing a neodymium magnet wrapped in a medical glove. The findings were actually less than I had expected. Yes, there was some metal debris in my tank, but nothing that worries me. The likelihood of this debris making its way through the fuel line, past the water separator, past the fuel pump, and through the 10-micron filter to mess up the injection pump is absolutely nil. So I stick with my previous conclusion, and I wish I had not gone through this hassle. But you guys have showed an interest in my last video, so I thought I'd be thorough and see this through to the end. If you found this video helpful, I'll always appreciate a thumbs up and a subscription to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything. The last thing I want to do is provide my opinion on some of the remedies I've seen for this issue, and you can make your own decision on how you'd like to progress with your machine. I see a lot of people talking about putting cow magnets in their tank. If you don't know what those are, you'll have to Google it. The idea is the magnets in the tank will collect all the shavings and keep them from getting into the important stuff. I feel this solution just adds more contamination to the tank. These neodymium magnets I have just been sitting on a shelf, and you can see how they're deteriorating and flaking off. I wouldn't want that contamination in my tank, and I can only imagine the abuse those magnets are getting vibrating around at the bottom of the diesel tank. Another solution people are doing is to add magnets to the outside of the tank. But you can see in this little experiment, the magnetic flux is completely consumed by the first layer of metal, and there's no magnetic pull on the chisel. This is a very low consequence solution. I just don't see it as being beneficial. It's my opinion that the contaminants in the tank will just stay there. If they make their way to the water separator, they'll drop to the bottom of that. And if they make their way to the quality fuel filter you should have upgraded your machine to, they'll definitely not make it past there. I hope you guys are enjoying moving dirt or getting closer to your next winning bid at auction. Keep an eye out for my next video, and I'll see you soon.